Hello and welcome to the Xenothesis podcast. In this episode 63, we're covering chapters 11 and 12 from Part 2 Exile of Book 3 Imago of the Xenogenesis trilogy by Octavia E. Butler. My name is Richard Acton and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host,
Michael Glinka. Hi everyone. Richard, I dare you to say that intro 3 times in a row fast. You're so smooth and good at it, but I feel like it could be a tongue twister very quickly.
Yeah, I'm not doing 3 times in a row fast.
Especially the book, was it book 2? Was it part 2 or part 3? Catch-Talk?
Yes. That's a bit of a tongue twister to say many times fast.
Yeah. Anyhow, this is the last chapters of part 2. Exciting because we're nearing the end of the book and the end of the trilogy, so it's a bit scary and also exciting of what the fate brings to us.
Yeah, what lies ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. But speaking of the fate, shall we go to my predictions?
Yes. Yeah. How did you fare this week?
This is probably the more obvious prediction, finally the journey is reaching its end. Jodahs' family coming to collect them to take care of Jesus and metamorphing Jodahs. But somewhere in the back of my mind, it keeps ringing like, it's Octavia Butler, man. It's Octavia Butler. She's just waiting to throw, I don't know, an apocalypse somewhere. Like they get home and, Jodah's about to, undergo his second metamorphosis. And then suddenly, boom, resistors surround the whole house or something type of situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I know it didn't happen, but still, it's scary. It's a scary sort of moment, a scary voice in my head keeps telling me.
Okay.
But
you got kind of everything's too quiet kind of a feeling, right?
Yes, way too quiet. Knowing her, it's way too quiet.
I mean, we did just get the, emergency recovery from gunshots
Yes.
kind of like washing up on the shores of the Amazon in dire straits, but it's still too quiet.
Yes, honestly, it's still too quiet. That's one shot healed, that's nothing, right? And it's like I'm waiting for like the whole family being surrounded, and then I don't know, it just genuinely felt like it can't be it can't just end like this. But this chapter is being pretty quiet, but quite, I would say, it's been a bit quiet, short chapter. I think the next one is more exciting because we get to talk about biology.
Yes, yeah, we get a bit of a kind of wrap up of the the tension of them. Will they get home okay?
Yes.
And, chapter 11 resolves that in yes, they got home more or less okay, but with a little tidbit of some potential tension to come.
Yes.
And some introductions to relatives.
Yes. So let's get started. The chapter 11 summary. So the chapter starts where the last one ended, on the riverbank. Jodahs notified Thomas that its family is coming. It also warned Thomas about how the man and Jesus will feel around them, that the fact that they will feel uncomfortable because they're bound with Jodahs. That's the reference to, if you listeners, you remember, a lot of time when a family unit is formed, they don't want to be around other Oankali or humans type of situation. But that's exactly what Jodahs meant.
Yeah, the kind of odd.
But I guess maybe also a bit uncomfortable with seeing Nikanj and the true Oankali because they didn't see Oankali before.
True, yes. They've only seen the kind of weird chameleon style Oankali that Jodahs is.
Pangolin, yes.
Yeah. Looking very human at the moment, though, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes. I think it changed its look to look like Thomas, I think, and Jesus combined.
Yes. Yeah, it looks like a sibling of those two.
Yeah. So that's where, just as Jodahs finished the sentence, that's when Lilith, Nikanj, and Aaor came out. Aaor was past its first metamorphosis, and the first one to speak was Lilith, saying she needs to learn not to worry about Jodahs and welcome the other two, and thanking them for taking care of Jodahs. Jodahs introduced Lilith and Nikanj and explained to them, to Thomas, who and what they are. Aaor, here's a bit from the book. Aaor, who was restraining itself in obvious effort, said, "When I touch you, Jodahs, I won't let you go for at least a day." I laughed, remembering its touch, realizing that I was eager to touch it too, and understand how it had changed.
Yeah, it's interesting because you get that whole little digression on the discussion of their different backgrounds, one human and Oankali born. So they have different stuff to learn from one another after having been apart. Gained new experiences. And then we get some introductions, right? But there's the difficulty with them all speaking Spanish is they have these uloi who don't have male or female pronouns.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So they're just using the English "it" to refer to the uloi because they don't have a good Spanish drop-in.
Yeah, it's interesting how very it's surprising though to me, because I mean, even in a lot of other gendered like language that have masculine feminine versions of the words or verbs, they would have the non-gendered option for like objects, right?
No, not always. I mean, like
in Spanish, yeah. But like, that surprised me. That's what I said. Like, it surprised me because I thought, oh, you would have an option, right? Like, just in case, like it's a piece of wood. It doesn't have a male or female. It's just a piece of wood.
What's that like in Polish? Is there a
in Polish there is we say it is, right? There is exactly if there's if it's an object. We say it, right? Like it's like in English, so it's
okay.
It wouldn't be a problem for us to create a third gender, even it. But yeah,
in German, even though they have neuter, a lot of the conjugations don't really make a lot of sense unless it's actually a neuter thing. So it's it can be tricky to use like a neuter pronoun. It doesn't really work. It's only really it's odd.
Yeah. But, yeah. It's languages and their structures are a fascinating topic, which I have no clue about. But honestly, it's when you listen to people speak languages and like honestly, I thought it's universal that you would have.
Nope, that's like certainly in French and Spanish, and I think also Italian and a bunch of the other kind of like closely related Romance languages. Basically, everything has a gender.
Yeah. Well, continuing on. Jodahs couldn't wait, but the first thing was to feed all of them. They were exhausted by the journey and the fact that as well as the fact that Jodahs had to heal Jesusa. Nikanj asked Thomas their names, and surprising Jodahs, Thomas introduced himself fully. Thomas, Serrano, y Martin. He also introduced his sister. Jesusa woke up, and although Thomas was fine, she was taken back by Nikanj's appearance. It was first time to see any Oankali for her, and she was scared. But the family took them back to their house. Jesusa still wasn't sure if she will stay. Jodahs explained to her that no one will hurt her, and they will feed her, but no one will touch her. Again, for the same reason as previously with Thomas. Here's a paragraph from the book. "Will they let me go?" she asked. I turned my head so that I could look at her eyes with my eyes. "Don't leave me," I said very softly. "I'm afraid I don't see how I can stay with your family. Stay with me. Your relative, the Oankali one, Nikanj, my uloi parent. It will never touch you. I would get that promise from it before I slept again. It's uloi, like you." Jodahs explained to her that although they are the same sex, but Nikanj is actually a pure Oankali, whereas Jodahs is a mix with a human. And obviously, Jesusa was scared of the unknown, as many people are. And she promised that she will stay until Jodahs' metamorphosis is finished. So she'll keep the promise. And that's where the chapter ends.
Yeah, I think she was also saying that she's scared not only of Nikanj but of to Jodahs to some significant degree still.
I mean,
she's not understanding what's going on here in full. Yeah.
I mean, as you said, like, being under that spell, that enhanced with the pheromones that Jodahs is producing. Like, I mean, like, obviously it's a bit disconcerting, as we said many times before.
Yeah. And that's the sort of final note of the chapter, right? We get Lilith kind of looking askance at what's been going on with Jodahs. It's like a very, what exactly have you been up to with these humans?
Yeah.
Little Uloi. And Lilith is, I think it's described in the text as upset and under great stress was what was conveyed to Jodahs by her scent.
Yeah.
When she's sort of seeing how much Tomas and Jesusa seem to be kind of, under Jodah's spell.
Yeah, and to be fair, on the other hand, I can imagine that Lilith is a bit of feels a bit of relief that Jodahs is not a pangolin anymore.
Yeah, I think we got that up top, right? When Jodahs came back, Lilith was like, I should I've known not to worry too much about you, but now she's, I think, worried about it for different reasons. Not worried about its well-being, but its the morality of its choices, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. I guess now having the fact that there's Mars, the fact that Jodahs pushed itself, or like literally on Thomas and Jesusa, is pretty obvious, and that's why Lilith is a bit like,
yeah. So what exactly have you been up to with these humans, and have you conducted yourself appropriately, or have you basically forced yourself on these two, and mind whammied them with all of the Uloi wiles.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was where the chapter 11 finished. So let's get to my chapter 12 predictions. So obviously, finally back with Lilith, Nikanj, and the rest of the family. Question was, will Jesusa leave, right? And I generally wasn't sure what will be the result. I mean, obviously this is the end of the part, so this wouldn't be, this probably would be left as a cliffhanger until next part. But at the same time, having Aaor back is, it's another construct Uloi. Jodahs just brought 2 fresh humans that are untouched literally by any Oankali. It's going to be, I thought to myself that this is going to be a ripple, both in the whole family, that there is non-modified humans there, but for Aaor specifically, it's going to be like, I want it, and I want it now.
Okay, yeah. Any particular thing you're expecting Aaor to do in response to that? Or?
In the long-term predictions, I think Aaor is going to behave like Jodahs when it met Thomas and Jesusa. That's going to just like follow. Like Aaor is going to be like all over them, trying to find where the village is, and maybe even escaping, or just I don't know, to be honest. But Aaor is definitely going to do something that's going to it's going to be problematic.
Okay.
I mean, in the whole chapter, like, I think at the end of the chapter 12, Aaor is like, although not looking at them, all the tentacles and all its body parts like are literally pointing at Jesus and Thomas.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some heavier foreshadowing that Aaor might be a problem in 12. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, part 3 is going to be fun, basically.
Okay then.
It's interesting. Actually, just before we continue to the summary, I was just thinking, like, I feel like, I hope not, but I feel like, one potential problem could be that Aaor could try to, get one of them at least, Thomas or Jesus out of Jodahs' hands, if you know what I mean. Like, because obviously the adult Oankali will not steal an adult. They will not steal, potential for
an already
partners.
mated Uloi,
Yeah, but Jodahs
an
is
unmated adolescent. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, Aaor's finished its metamorphosis, right?
But the first one, yes. So it's like,
yes, only the first one. Yeah. So it's still in the yep. Yeah.
So here we are.
Yep. Recipe for trouble.
So yeah, let's get to chapter 12, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So back in the house, the three of them were fed, given new clothing, and helped to relax. Aaor was so fascinated by the new people. It was asking, but the new two newcomers. It was asking about their own people. And here's a paragraph from the book. Jesus and Thomas looked at each other. Jesus looked apprehensive, but Thomas smiled. It was a tired, sad smile. Our first post-war ancestors never found one another, he said. I'll tell you if you like. Long story short, the elders came from a community from all around the world that could speak Spanish. The first mother, who was 15 at the time, was attacked and assaulted by a group of resistors, and that's to describe it gently, and her mother killed. She was then found by the rest of the group after recovering some strength, and they found that she was pregnant. The group wasn't sure though if it was a human or unhuman child. Some people said it was better to have no children than to have unhuman children. So everyone was observing and trying to figure out what would come out of the girl. Some blamed the Oankali for the attack. And here's a paragraph from the book. The Kanj spoke up. They could not have believed we would send them away sterile, then change our minds and impregnate one of them while killing another. Even with its soft, mature Ulo voice, it managed to sound outraged.
Which, the Oankali still don't get humans.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have... It's just, an excuse just to, throw blame at them.
Yep. Some mysterious group of people ambushed and raped this girl, and they're gonna blame it on the others. They're gonna blame it on the outsiders, irrespective of how illogical that may or may not be.
Exactly.
No.
So yeah, there were all different stories about the Oankali. Some even described them as devils. But when the child was born, everybody took care of him, and he was perfect and human. They named him Adan. Not Adam, Adan. Her name was Maria de la Luz. Which is really interesting, because I thought Octavia Butler would just jump onto the obvious name Adam, but she just converted Adan, unless I'm not...
Adan, yeah. No, I think it's just a question of maybe they're kind of echoing it, but not directly using Adam as Adan instead.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. And then there's De La Luz of the Light. It has the Maria of the Light does sound a little,
there's
mythical.
A religious aspect,
some biblical echoes. Yeah.
So they kept the child separate from the mother, so that when the time came, they could put to get them together again and make more children. I'm not joking.
Of course.
And that's what happened when Adan was 13. So, but they also realized that Maria was growing old. By the time her first daughter was born, she looked older than the people who helped raise her son. She had 3 daughters and 2 sons, and died during the birth of the second boy. The one who was seriously deformed had a hole in his back, basically a spina bifida. He died almost immediately and was buried together with the mother. The people actually believe in the spirit of the mother, which led to an interesting conversation about spiritualism and Oankali beliefs. But Oankali quickly squished the idea. They believed in life, and here's a paragraph in the book that describes it. If I died on a lifeless world, a world that could sustain some form of life, if it were tenacious enough, organelles within each cell of my body would survive and evolve. In perhaps 1,000 million years, that world would be full of life as this one. There was no religion in between Oankali. They just believed in life itself.
Yeah, so quite a bit to unpack there. No, so we've got this really dark history of the community from which Thomas and Jesusa hail.
Yeah. Unless there was a, whatever the human whoever the man who raped Maria would stay behind. But they will, that would be the only way not to have it incestuous relationships in this tribe. But obviously the man didn't, so that was the only way to preserve, just to have full-on Sweet Home Alabama in that tribe.
I feel like I should apologize to any listeners we might have in Alabama because every time we bring this up.
Sorry, it should be me who apologizes because I say that every single time.
Oh dear.
But then again,
I suppose the desperation of the humans to try and get the ability to reproduce back leads to some fairly effed up decision making.
The girl was 15. They kept them separate. So by the time the boy was 13, she was 28.
Mm-hmm.
Literally my age, our age.
Yeah,
that's just messed up. It's just so messed up when you think about it. But it was for them. It was a desperate time. Desperate times require desperate measures. But yeah.
Nope. That's an interesting justification, right? They're so sort of determined in their belief that we should keep a pure human line, that they will go to these lengths to achieve that.
Absolutely.
But, yeah. Mm.
But the problem is... Go on.
Well, I was just going to move the conversation on to some of the other points that the sort of more biological stuff that we came up with in this little section. We got some little biological tidbits. There's Spina bifida, more of there's a genetic component to that, but for the most part, more of a dietary thing, folate deficiency.
Yeah. So that was that was the first thing, sort of like I would say foreshadowing, one would say, but obviously this was caused by the diet. But continuing on, going back to the story, at the end, the mother had 23 grandchildren. 15 survived, but they were deformed. The very deformed ones were not spared. And one of their elders said there was a disease like this before the war, but Jodahs healed them. Lilith immediately asked Jodahs to describe it, and once it did, Lilith said that the rest of their tribe will not have to suffer much longer.
Yeah, so they went hard on the trying to breed additional reproductive humans with 23 grandchildren.
Yeah.
So
it was literally, just something was definitely waiting there to erase, from the problem, that basically from the similar genetics. And it does come out when Lilith asks Jodahs to describe it.
Yes, just the bit about the nature of the disease that they have. Is that where? Well, because we sort of skipped over a little bit the statement that the Oankali had about their survival on a barren world thing. Because the order's a bit funky here because we kind of interrupt the story mid-flow and then come back to it. But there's this little bit dropped in the middle there from was it Ahagis? Yeah, Ahagis, where she says, like, if I died on a lifeless world, that could sustain some form of life. If it were tenacious enough, organelles within each cell of my body would survive and evolve in perhaps 1,000 million years. that world would be as full of life as this one. Right, that little section there. We should probably go back and talk about that just a second.
Yeah.
A second, because that's an interesting statement.
No, absolutely. I mean, the Oankali, as we knew, they don't have a religion, right? Because for them, the life is sacred, right? They are very biological because they can basically sense biology in a very, as we described it before. What was the not pure also sense of it, right? Like you can't go deeper than genetics, right? Like it's just
yeah. And I think they also have a kind of almost slightly more collective mindset, right? They
Yes.
have this kind of semi-telepathic ability to communicate with one another, or when they're connected, they have a much more sort of full, direct, high bandwidth connection to one another's minds.
Yes.
And they have the genetic memory as well. So there's this whole kind of the individuals are a bit more coextensive with the community than are perhaps individual humans. So there's this perhaps lessened sense of individual death because they regard themselves as being a bit more part of this collective, and their some of their memories literally continue on in subsequent generations in a way that human memories don't in quite the same fashion.
Yeah.
There's a kind of direct physical connection in some sense, right? If it's a genetic memory, then that's an actual copy being made and transmitted to some subsequent generation. So yeah, I suppose that sort of that sense in which their memory survives death is what fills in for their spiritual belief, as it were, or analogizes for the human version of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking to myself, because in the previous chapters we had the discussion about that description of the organelle that the Oloi have, and like the fact that if an Oankali went to a planet where there's no potential trading partners, but they could leave the organelle, and the fact that they could then come back in several thousand, 100,000 of years to that planet and use that and then meet, and then basically it's like, oh, actually, this is the same sort of subspecies in a way, and trade with them. Like, I just wonder how the memory would be like. Would they remember everything at that point, and then basically those new memories that have been generated combine itself together? It's just the question is back to your archiving, and how do you sort through that memory?
Yeah. I mean, you are kind of you have a semi-independent tree, right? So how do I mean, my analogy for this is probably not very useful for other people, but unless they're programmers, because it's Git branches. So if you know Git, then the diagrams of branches in program history and merges and all the rest of it are what I'm visualizing to manage this sort of tree of memories. So they've split off a copy of the repository and they have their own branch and they're doing their own thing, and they have a whole separate commit history, and then we're merging a branch of that back into the main one. So the history remains there and you can explore it and move through it, but it's still we're just sort of patching it back on.
Yeah.
And resolving any conflicts, although they just it's mostly just data, so there aren't any specific merge conflicts that'll mess with the execution of anything that are going to cause a problem. But as a branching tree where they've had their own branch, it had a common history up to that point. They went off and did their own thing, and then we merged a portion of it back in. So it's
And I guess in this case it'll be full merge all the time, no deletes or stuff like that. It's just everything is just added to it. And
yeah, well, I mean, there's not really the same analogy of wherever your head is sitting in the language of Git again.
Yes.
There isn't like a main branch per se that you have to pay specific attention to. It's a bit more distributed than that. So the analogy is perhaps imperfect, but I don't know.
Yeah. And how about also going back into this section about like Lilith and Jodahs' actions, right? Because you've mentioned a few times about like Jodahs' behavior towards Jesusa and Thomas, and Lilith's obvious concern and discomfort about this.
Yeah, it's like the bit that kind of breaks up the story almost is Lilith's kind of insistence that Jodahs explain the nature of Tomas and Jesus's disease, right? That's how we kind of get split off from the history of the village in the mountains where they're from, and get diverted into the specifics of their condition, because Lilith is continuing to be uncomfortable with and possibly disapproving of whatever Jodahs has been up to with these two. So we got a kind of fairly curt describe it, said Lilith, about the condition they had, and then I'll just read this section from the text. I looked at her and understood that she was asking me for more than a description of the disorder. Her face was set and grim, as it had been since Jesusa promised to stay with me through metamorphosis. She wanted to know what reason there might be, apart from her love for me, for not telling the humans how bound to me they were becoming. She wanted to know why she should betray her own kind with silence. So yeah, that's Lilith is insisting that there be a good reason.
I mean, to be fair, she experienced that, so
yes, exactly. Yeah, I think that's definitely where that's coming from, and makes perfect sense. Very understandable.
Yeah,
it's she's sort of experienced what the Uloi can do, and is wanting to make sure that this is being a power being wielded at least somewhat appropriately by Jodahs.
Absolutely, but yeah, so that's where basically the.
Well, I suppose that leads us into Jodahs and Jesus's condition, right?
Yes.
Neurofibromatosis.
But before that, like basically, this is where Lilith explains to Jesus, that there is Mars, and they can go to the colony because that alternative did not exist for Lilith. But the name of the disease that they were having is called neurofibromatosis, and so giving a bit of a description of the disease here. Actually, there's two types. Technically, actually three. The third type is called schwannomatosis, but it's not really well described yet. It's distinct from the other two types, but it's still there's still a little understood. So here we'll not talk about it here. But the first two types, the NF1 type 1 neurofibromatosis, is caused by mutations in the gene that controls production of a protein called neurofibromin from a gene neurofibromin 1. NF2 results from a mutation in a different tumor suppressing gene called neurofibromin 2, or otherwise known as Merlin. And as I said, the two types, the NF1 manifests itself at birth or during early childhood, and it's characterized by like light brown, as people describe it, café au lait. How the hell do I pronounce
Café
it?
au lait.
I did French in GCSEs. I can't remember. Café latte? Café lait?
Café au lait.
Café au lait. Okay.
But yeah,
I'm
it's,
going to cut off this bit from the recording.
But it's a kind of a nice way to describe
Yes.
the color of these spots. But yeah, okay.
Concentrated in usually in areas of the groin and underarms, and there are usually benign tumors under the skin. Enlargement and deformity of the bones and curvature of the spine, called scoliosis, may also be present in this condition. On occasion, it's said that people with NF1 may develop tumors in the brain or on the cranial nerves or involving the spinal cord. So it's pretty close to what I think what this condition might be, but at the same time, the type 2 neurofibromatosis may appear during childhood, adolescence, or early adulthood, and it's primarily characterized by benign tumors on the nerves that transmit sound impulses and balance signals from the inner ears to the brain. Tumors commonly affect both left and right hearing and balance nerves. So this is interesting because I think it shows that the time that maybe neurofibromatosis at the time of Octavia Butler was not well understood yet, because she, described that it as, Thomas having issue with hearing and general and eyesight, but it seems that the neurofibromatosis type 1 doesn't affect the hearing, whereas it does affect the growths and the bone structure and stuff like that. So it seemed that at the time, although
maybe there was a bit of a conflation of the two
Yes.
symptom sets, but although I don't know to what degree there's overlap between the two
yes
subtypes, whether or not there's some conditions that might give you the symptoms of both to some degree. I'm not sure.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Like it's unsure that whether there could be an overlap of those two genes, being mutated or something. But whether it is, it seems to fit pretty well. I mean, obviously because Octavia picked that disease specifically for those for that group. But yeah, it's typically a genetic disease. So, but nowadays we know there's two types, and the third type is a bit still to be described, exactly to be understood, but it seems to be there's a third type that we know of. So now
I haven't read into the genetics, but from the name, I'm assuming it's a similar potential genetic cause, but with a different primary cell type affected. Schwann cells would be.
Well, it says here that it shares many features with neurofibromatosis, but current evidence suggests that it's distinct genetic disease. So
Okay.
So it seems that although
so similar clinically, but with
genetically different. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's interesting, because so this is fascinating, and I think it shows a lot of when books are written, and especially in the situations like this, how things change, right? So
I think we encountered a similar thing with some of the other genetic conditions before, where there's we get the state of the art of what was known at the time.
Absolutely,
pretty well represented by Octavia, because she did her homework. But things change just a little bit as understanding develops.
Absolutely.
But it's always good to see that people have done their homework when they're using stuff in sci-fi, though.
Yes. Yes, no, absolutely. I can't, obviously, we can't say anything about Octavia because she did a fantastic job with picking conditions that, at the time were, I would say, hot, I would say, if I can use those words on the, in science.
Sort of, the stuff. Well, that's a bit of a sort of inside science baseball thing, right? That's that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Topics come in and out of fashion, as they do in any other realm, right? So the hot new disease that gets is
oh my God.
potentially a thing, at least when it comes to what people are paying attention to and publishing on, even if the description of it in those terms sounds a bit crass. From the outside perspective,
but in the same time, it is like, something new comes up or something, and like everybody talks about it. So absolutely.
Yep.
But
you get publishing fads where everyone wants to publish about this thing, and all the money is available for talking about this thing, and then everyone's like, "Why is everyone talking about this thing? There's all these other," and then the attention shifts.
I mean, obviously when COVID came in, like everybody jumped on especially any virus research, labs were immediately jumping on it because that's where the funding was. And to be honest, like the amount of research done in those 2 years is crazy. It's
everybody and their dog published a COVID paper.
Yeah,
I'm a co-author on a COVID paper.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And to be honest, it just blows my mind how much information, how much science is generated in such a short period of time, because there's so many people working on it, and now we have tools that allow to literally just, you have a data, analyze it. The other group takes the data, analyzes from their perspective, and adds something to it. And it's just, by the end of 2 years, you literally have 3 years now. Like, you have so much data about it that it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot of amazing work done, but you also get a lot of kind of bandwagon stuff.
Oh,
where, because it's the sexy thing to be publishing about these days, people will be like, how can I make some random tangential connection between my completely unrelated thing to this currently hot thing so I can get it published?
Oh, absolutely. But then again, when you say that, sometimes you find an interesting link and it's like, really? Really?
Yeah, occasionally that actually works out, yeah.
And then at the end, like, somebody checks, is like, well, actually, yes, really. And it's like, huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So, going back to the book, Lilith also mentioned that, this disease could lead to malignant tumors. And that's why they would be such an attraction to an Uloi. That's when Aaor came in. It was craving for the same, hoping that maybe there is 1 or 2 people who would join it. If I could reach them, Aaor said, I could convince them. I could see the hunger in it, the desperation. I'm looking forward to the part 3. Yeah. I can taste the good stuff. Aaor is, going insane type of situation.
Nah, I think Lilith's concerns may have to shift from from Jodahs over to Aaor and rein it in, because Yeah, because I mean, Aaor was one more Uloi construct, and the fact that the moment it gets on the ship, it won't be allowed to have much choice. Also, the humans will be given to other Oankali first. So, and not surprisingly, Jesus and Thomas were startled by this reaction and told Aaor that no member of the tribe would willingly join it. The argument continued a bit between Jesus and Aaor, but eventually Jodahs fell asleep. And the chapter ends with Nikanj telling Thomas and Jesus to take Jodahs to the spare room and stay with it. Jodahs didn't say anything, and that was automatically, recording, but it remembered the gentle touch and care they took to carry it to the spare room. And that's where the chapter ends, and the part 2 is finished. Yeah. There's a little bit of Aaor's conversation there with Jesus, where they're kind of going back and forth about Aaor's sort of like, I'll be able to persuade them.
I will.
Jesus is like,
yes, and
no, you don't get it. Like their beliefs are totally the antithesis of this. It's like they will choose maybe Mars, if in maybe she's skeptical of that, but more likely like the sterility here on Earth and not having to be anything to do with the Oankali as much as possible. But yeah, that's and then we've got sort of a Lilith saying earlier that if they're wise, they will choose Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's even, I can feel the conflict already. Lilith being like they have a choice, and I'm sure Lilith would be like, I'll make sure make sure that the option is given to them before anything happens. But at the same time, I feel like she will feel sorry for Aaor if it doesn't get like a partner, because obviously there's Oankali on the ship that like are having problem finding partners to trade.
Yeah. We get quite a bit of Aaor's kind of like insecurity here about this. It won't get suitable partners on the ship, and none of the humans will be interested in it as a partner, and there's no other opportunities for it to find mates other than potentially Tomas and Jesus's people. But it seems unlikely that it will find willing mates among Tomas and Jesus's people, and without extra doses of Oankali mind whammy.
Yeah. So
which Lilith won't be comfortable with.
Absolutely. But yeah, like a lot of things happen this part actually, and shall we go to the summary of the part 2?
Yes.
So yeah,
with reflecting back on the
whole
last
part.
few
Honestly,
chapters.
It only has been like few episodes that we've done this, but it technically was like 3 months that we've done it. I'm like, I'm going through the notes. I was going through like to do the summary. I was like, I don't remember this at all. So it's a good.
We do kind of draw it out a bit.
Yeah. So it was like a good to write the summary, so to remember what happened. So after the first fiasco with the journey out of law, just a reminder, there was when the family left the law, they got attacked, so they had to go back. The family journeyed out again. Jodahs was still having issues with controlling its powers, and they encountered some resistors, but another human, Joao, if you remember, who again really attracted Jodahs. But the man didn't stay long, a month, until his leg regrew. That's when everyone got surprised, because Aaor also started its metamorphosis, but not into a female, but an Uloi as well.
Yes, the other surprise Uloi.
Yes, another Kinder surprise here for us. Jodahs became a lizard, or a pangolin to be specific, and started moving more and more away from his family to eventually meet another set of humans, Tomas and Jesusa. This surprised Jodahs because once it touched them, it realized that they were untouched by the Oankali, and they were struggling because of genetic disease. And they were also fertile, unheard of for a whole century before. And the story continued with Jodahs secretly following them, like a normal being would do, until it couldn't stop itself anymore and came out to them. Got shot, then connected with them, healed, and eventually made their back to to its family. Before that, though, Jodahs started second metamorphosis, and Jesusa got shot.
I think, and Jodahs too, I think.
Yeah, Jodahs I think also got shot, but Jesusa was the one that really was bleeding out, so...
Yeah. So, quite a lot of getting shot. Oh dear, yep. No, and then, the pangolin thing also always still kind of... gets me. I have this mental image of kind of the pangolin, but remember, it's a pangolin with like a human face.
Yes.
Right? So I've got this kind of like... and a vaguely, those like the weird creatures in Spirited Away that have the kind of like flat mask faces.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
It's kind of like that, but with a pangolin and a human face.
Honestly, but the best, creepy. The funniest stuff was, I think, was the question: do pangolins sweat? That.
Yes.
The answer is no, they don't. They actually don't have sweat glands, but it's, I put in the references in, I think, episode or 2 episodes ago when the pangolin first came up. But yeah, it was just It's hilarious. Like I generally checked, and there's actually a journal that looked into the skin structure of the pangolins, and no, they don't have sweat glands, so they don't sweat.
Huh. Fascinating. I don't think I checked that reference. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean they go to a lot of parts of the pangolin and its anatomy and stuff. So
yeah, they're pretty weird, pretty unique.
I mean, to be fair, it's also expected and unexpected, you would think, but hey, such is evolution and the nature.
Yeah. I wonder how they thermoregulate then. It's
there we go. Another question that I have to find the reference to.
To learn some more about pangolin biology.
I think that article goes into detail on that. I think it does, but you'd have to check that reference.
No. I'll add it to my my reading list.
The never-ending reading list. But yeah, actually, there were only a few topics that we really covered that were distinct in this part. We talked about the vegan diet and vitamin B12 supplements. Except for the pangolins as well, we talked about the importance of vision over the other sensory modalities. We talked about the post-nuclear sickness, and that was, what was it related to? When I was making notes, what did we?
I don't remember when that came up, because we didn't have any sort of significant radiation exposure.
No, I think it was about the sickness that, like, I think they were talking about the sickness of the humans in the.
Yeah. Well, there was some discussion of the post-war humans.
Yes, that was it.
I forget when that was.
That they were like, sick and everything, and we were like, is this the post-nuclear sickness or not? We aren't sure, to be honest. And still to this day, I'm not sure if that was the case.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, there was kind of like legends of what had happened to the first generation after the war.
Yeah.
And some of it lined up with radiation sickness, and some of it didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which makes sense, because that's the humans passing on the myths and legends of what happened, and probably mixing up a little bit of radiation poisoning with other things.
Absolutely. So yeah, and finally we talked about Ray Harryhausen, a legend in the special effects.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. I have a book about him, and it's his amazing his life, and how he created those amazing movies using basically those Godzilla and stuff like that, and King Kong movies and the old ones. It's just amazing, and that the reason we mentioned it was because of Jodahs being a pangolin. So.
I know, but we had some kind of a creature in the Black Lagoon reference.
Yes.
That,
you came out with the reference, yeah.
Yeah, it was before Jodahs was a pangolin, when he was like a frogman.
Yes,
In
basically.
the river.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And another sort of Lilith giving him the side eye and sort of pull yourself together.
Exactly. It's just like, come on. It's like, it's not a face, Mom. Can you imagine actually like the Oankali, a teenage Oankali being like, "No, Mom, it's not a phase. I am a lizard."
It's literally a phase. Yeah. Well, that's and then we had a couple of other biological topics to tack on the end there, with a little bit of neurofibromatosis stuff, and the spina bifida, and some
absolutely
some genetics stuff, genetic disorders and so on. Yep.
So yeah, we had a good end, because we happened to have a chance to talk about biology and figure out what the actual disease is. And kudos to Octavia Butler for doing this, because honestly she Well, for the time, for the bit, for the state of the art science at the time, she picked really good, and she blended it in well. So
yeah, and it's actually quite a nice surfacing of some of these rare genetic conditions, right? Because there's thousands of these very rare genetic diseases that are affect a very small number of people for each individual disease, but quite a lot of people in total are affected by some of these extremely rare genetic diseases, just by different ones, right? And yeah, they're extremely instrumental in understanding a lot of biology.
Oh yeah,
because the people with these sort of rare genetic diseases, they often sort of monocausal genetically. So there's one gene which is impacting a lot of these systems and causing all these symptoms, and that reveals a lot about what that gene's doing biologically. So the study of biology in general is littered with examples of, we figured out what this gene did because of these rare genetic conditions that affect it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, honestly, this is how, and not surprised that Octavia used cancer as example of the, regeneration, because at the time, like, there was a thought of like cancer being used as, a potential way to heal humans. And I still remember as a kid when they were talking about like, utilizing cancer as a means of, like maybe in regenerative medicine. And I mean, to be fair, like, comic superheroes like Deadpool, written by cancer, super regeneration type of situation, like Spider-Man, the lizard, was, like he could cure cancer, but no, everybody's gonna be a lizard.
Yeah, I think we picked up on those pop culture references.
No, we haven't.
That.
To be honest.
Yeah.
It just came to my mind right now, like just now. But like, I'm sure there's probably a lot of pop culture references to this stuff as well. And
we can link that back to whichever episode it was when we had an extended discussion of the cancer and rejuvenative medicine and all that kind of stuff. We've had that conversation before.
Oh yeah, we definitely did. And it's somewhere like one of the first episodes.
No, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah,
we'll look it up.
Well, maybe.
So
yes.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Depends which one of us is doing the notes, and whether or not we can be bothered. Okay, right. So let's see. Let's wrap up with your predictions for the next section.
Sure.
And for the first chapter of the next section.
Sure. So, chapter 1. Now, as always, I don't know how much time will pass, but I have this feeling that I can definitely tell that Aaor is gonna be a problem. It's the craving for humans. It's not going to be able to resist this feeling, right? It's just, it's like, I don't know, a thirsting man seeing a bottle of water in the middle of a desert, like type of situation. Like, it's just, it will not be able to stop itself to going. And no matter what Jesusa will say, Aaor is going to be literally clawing towards that village. In the same time, I thought deeper about it, because the part 3 name is Imago. And I don't know what does it mean, but I suspect it's the name of the human village.
We discussed that.
Did we?
Yeah, because the book title is also Imago.
Yeah.
Which it's the name for like an adult insect.
Okay.
Yeah. The adult form of an insect.
Right. Now you say that. Okay, because I when I was writing, it's like I didn't completely forgot. See, this is how long it's been a while since we started recording, this book, and I completely forgot about that. You mentioned that. So apologies, and thank you for reminding me. But yeah, I was thinking that it might be the name of the village, but now when you say that, it obviously indicates the life of Jodahs as an adult construct Uloi. It's its story continuing, but I feel like Aaor is going to be big sort of reason of a conflict, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the sort of transition to adulthood has been a long-running theme in the last couple books.
Yeah.
So I think I suppose the culmination of that here for both Aaor and
Jodahs.
Jodahs. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So sorry. Yeah, absolutely. That's. But yeah, I just thought that whatever it is, there's going to be a conflict. In the center of it, it's going to be Aaor. It's going to be fueled by Jodahs and Jesus and Thomas. I think there's going to be definitely a conflict between Jesus and Jodahs, because even if if Jodahs wants Jesus to stay, I have this strange feeling that Jesus will not be able to there's gonna be a conflict within her, and it's gonna be hard. I don't know. I'm not sure about this.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty solid, a general narrative prediction, as it were. That we've got Jesus being conflicted about whatever it is that is going on with the Oankali's choices for the village, especially Aaor's.
So yeah, that's my chapter 1 prediction and part 3 prediction. But let's see. I'm really looking forward to finishing this part and see what's what the final, because we're literally the final part of it. Like, it's just the last stretch.
Yes, the last section. Yeah, the last arc in the story.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's it for today, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We're Xenothesis. You can find all the places we upload our podcast on xenothesis.com. I was Michael Glinka.
And I was Rich Jackson.
Thank you and goodbye.